Welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series featuring master coaches from around the world. Let's journey together on this 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Karen Dean has been working as a professional coach with senior leaders worldwide for over 30 years. She holds a Master Certified Coach credential from the ICF. Karen's practice is focused on individuals and teams, and she is a trained supervisor of coaches. She is co-author of Coaching Stories, Flowing and Falling of Being a Coach. Karen is also the originator of the Me My Team method for accelerating team performance, and resources that support professional coach development, to enable feedback from clients on a coach's impact and relationship quality. Now on to the show.
Hello, and welcome to the 100 Master Coaches show. This is Coach Mal, and today my special guest is all the way from Sherwood, Nottingham, of course, the UK. Please put your hands together for Karen Dean. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you so much, Mel. It's great to be here.
Well, it is my pleasure to host you. We've waited a little while for this to happen, but I would like to say it is all worth the wait and worth the while. So it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for your patience, Mel, and your constancy, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
As coaching style as we can get, where would you want to begin this conversation?
I think I love your question around who are you, so I would like to begin there.
Sure.
And when I woke up this morning, the words that came to mind were I'm curious, compassionate, and courageous woman. And I come from a mining village in Nottinghamshire, and having traveled away and lived in other places, find myself back in this same place, right in the heart of Sherwood Forest. So still celebrating Robin Hood and channeling some of those values. But I'm a mother and a grandmother. I have 3 grandchildren, 2 little girls and a little boy.
That's beautiful.
And then I happen to work as a coach, although working as a coach and being a coach, I think, are very aligned. So perhaps that's an appropriate way to bring that full circle. And an author of a book about coaching stories. So that's me.
There's so many places I want to go with that opening. We'll start with the first one because I'm also curious. Did you ever get into that pun of people saying, "Oh, from Sherwood," Robin Hood, and then you did mention that just now, and I noted, and we were talking about it in the pre-show, talking about my version of Robin Hood, which was Kevin Costner. Right?
Yeah.
And that part of that courage comes out. It's mentioned the 3 C's. And also, obviously, compassion, because he had the compassion for the people who were not seen and not heard, if you know what I mean. And yet that courage to go against the tyranny of that time.
And doing it in his own way. And wanting, as you just used the word tyranny, but fighting abuse and oppression and inequity in a way that sought to redress the balance. And I think that there's a resonance of that for me, to find oneself on the end of bullying type of behaviors, for example, is something I really abhor, and something that is very resonant in me when I'm coaching is to enable others to find the voice, to be heard. And the parallel would be, even in my village, sort of being involved in the parish council, because I felt that we needed a stronger voice and we needed to care for ourselves and have our own resilience plan. And so definitely there's some spirit of Robin Hood that connects for me too, Mel, definitely. And I love Kevin Costner. And I was saying earlier, I have watched that movie so many times. And my eldest son, Tom, it's his favorite movie. And he's been watching it since he was tiny. And at one point watched it every day. So he was channeling something too, I think.
That's so beautiful, isn't it? Is that mirroring and just going with that that values, what is important, and isn't that just so important for these day and age as well, as we talk about the equity, the inclusivity, the whole acceptance of people as who they are versus who they need to be for society. What's your thoughts on that, especially in the area of how perhaps coaching can play a part in it?
Yeah, I think very much so. That when we're coaching and truly seeing our clients and giving them the space to be who they are, for them to discover more of who they are. Often we're bearing witness to something that hasn't yet come to full awareness for that person. And but understanding that it's not about our desire or our intention for them to get to a particular place or to manifest in a certain way. So the mutuality and the partnering and that sense of 50-50 for me really matters. So what am I offering, and in what way can I meet my client more truly where they are, such that they find their next significant step. And I think it's part of the competencies. We're encouraged to be with others in this way. And I think in giving people an experience of being seen like that is a great testament to why I believe coaching is growing so rapidly, and people are drawn to that skill and experience of conversation.
And what comes to mind for me is that when we're able to do that, in a way, we're acknowledging the full person, and just having that compassion that the person in front of us is, like what we always say, right? Creative, resourceful, and whole.
Yes.
And that she has the answers inside of her. However cliche that sounds, what do you say to that for some executives, perhaps, who have not 100% appreciated that fullness of what we can bring to the plate to allow them that space to discover themselves?
I think there might be an assumption that there's a parallel of coaching and sport and direction, almost of control and doing and a methodology. And of course, there's a framework that we follow and many tools that we might tap into. But if we're patient, we're curious, then people truly know their own answers. And how magnificent to have that available in an organization, that people are able to offer so much more than the thing they're rewarded for doing. Wow. That they can be inspired by the purpose of their role and the direction and vision of an organization, hopefully, and find themselves unlocking motivation, creativity, innovation, ideas, tap into their own experience, and offering something really special. So I think the return for investing and engaging in coaching, and coaching which is has an ethical code to be with others in the way that we're describing here, can be very, very powerful. It's worth it to the business to invest and invest in the people.
Absolutely.
Because we're modeling something when we're talking in a way that then maybe comes to others when they're having a conversation with their direct report the next day, or they're involved in a discussion which is becoming very binary and right, wrong, yes, no, in, out, love, hate, rather than the curiosity that says, let me stay with you and where might we go? And I believe that that's something so powerful that coaching can model for others. But it absolutely has an impact on the culture.
And I'm, thinking, where might we go, right? In this world where there are so many pressures to flow with what's right, and the culture of the organization, if for example I'm a new person coming in some ways I'll be considered as an outsider coming in and trying to assimilate into that new culture.
Yes.
And then I've got to also bring in my voice, right? My presence, my values in that sense, so that I don't just adopt things onto me. And after that, find that I've misaligned with myself because the true person, I chose at least not to show up in its fullness because of that potential repercussion if I'm not flowing with that particular culture. And that tough space where we are in today, with all of those needs to comply with a lot of things. What do you think is our response then? Especially coming from that point of view where we've seen how we've worked with these wonderful clients of ours through the years, knowing that they didn't start all that same way. They've probably gotten a little bit further along the road in discovering themselves and being accepting of themselves later on. And I guess the question is, Karen, in your experience, what has been some of the ways that you've allowed this wonderful person in front of you to be all that she can be?
I said patience and constancy, and thank you for that at the beginning.
Yeah, you did.
So I think that comes. I think capacity to gather as much awareness of the other person as possible in order initially to build the rapport.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's maybe doing things a little bit faster in the way that they happen to be manifesting rather than the more flowing way that we're talking now. And that's just a tiny example. But doing a little of what they do in order to demonstrate full awareness and respect for how they've showed up, and absolutely holding the belief that they will get there. And so I think and it not being about oneself, the coach, that it is about the other person. So letting go of the need to be right or good or perfect or have mastery. In the letting go, we'll be offered all that we need.
There's this rush and expectation that it's 12 sessions, for example, and we want to see some shifts happen in this particular coachee. Okay, I'm talking like a stakeholder now. Let's get there fast, okay? Let's get there in order. Let's not wait till the end before we start seeing some behavioral shifts in the way they are and how they work with their team. Conceptual, hypothetical, tough gig, isn't it, Karen? Where we're on one side having to balance the stakeholders' expectations, and there in front of us is our client, where she's got her own sets of expectations and on herself, and vis-a-vis what the stakeholders are expecting. Share with us, your experience of tough situations like that, and perhaps what were some of your wonderful strategies around that?
Wherever possible, hold a three-way between the stakeholder and the client.
Yeah, that's right.
And be very mindful that I have a duality of responsibility in that place.
Yeah.
To listen and attend to the needs of both, but to best facilitate common language and understanding between them as to what is what are we doing here, and where do we get to, and actually what is your evidence? So trying to bring granularity to the three-way conversation. Having done that, it's the client's agenda. The client is in my coaching.
That's right.
And every single time I work with someone, I always set up a record of what I call with them, and it's not my term, but their desired state, so that we stay in a place of what would you be seeing, hearing, feeling. It has a very neuro-linguistic programming resonance there, Mel. That's the way back in my history, early in the 1990s. But when you're there, what would that be like? And also factor in what you've heard from the stakeholder and how that maps to the organization, but beginning with self. So what is your desired state? And as people talk, then I'm capturing in their language what it is that they want. And I'm sharing all my secrets here, Mel.
Thank you.
And I always map where they are now, and so that as we go through, they know they've already made a shift. I find if I don't do that, they're not aware that they're growing and things are improving and they're having impact. They're not noticing. They can't celebrate and they can't consolidate and integrate. So helping them track their own progress, notice the difference, helping them have confidence to ask for feedback, so that there's always awareness of what shifts are expected and how am I mirroring those. But almost that's become secondary, because the desired state is so well formed, and we're tracking every session what shifted, where did you get to, how big is that gap. And I find that really fundamental, because otherwise we get to the end and we go, oh well, there's something really big happened here. But your question to me was, one-on-one and next, and how do we do that delivery? I think I have a responsibility as coach also to create the safe space that says, we heard all of that, we've been respectful, we've documented some of the very key pieces of shift and evidence that the stakeholder has in mind. Now let's let that go. Concentrate fully on you, and you will get there. And when you're at the end and you're looking back, you're going to notice you have traveled so far. And it's their space, and away we go.
And as a coach, what we do is we hold the light, right? So where the background, Robin Hood, right, shooting off that scene. We're there. We're not particularly shouting those instructions, like how you mentioned about the sports link just now. We're there, but in a sense, we allow them to be in their own light. As soon as they walk in, they would soon discover, if they're brave enough to face all of these, the good and the bad, as more of themselves show up, and the things that hopefully they could also let go, as we also need to let go, as you said, and allow them in their fullness to show up. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I did hear, sometimes it works beautifully and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes we get hooked and we perform really poorly. And that's what led me with my colleague Sam to write Coaching Stories and Flowing and Falling of Being a Coach, which is our book, which charts each of that style of story in 12 steps. We may describe from novice to mastery, but what sorts of things might lead us to fall? How do we become hooked and caught, and what's the consequence of that? And this isn't about looking at the client, but it's about looking at ourselves. And what was happening in me as coach in that moment, when I was flowing and flying and the beauty we've been talking about was happening. but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. And even, even at the end of 32-year journey as coach that I have, I still trip up. That's normal. And I think it's so important for us as coaches, again, to be compassionate and sometimes hold with the courage to witness ourselves not at our best, finding ourselves in a complexity in a system where we're suddenly channeling those same bad behaviors or those same concerns and worries. And that gets in the way of the coaching. So I think we have to continually examine our practice. And, supervision is something I'm passionate about. And I think it's a very helpful way. I know it isn't as widely used as it might, but I personally have found it very valuable.
Thank you. Thank you for saying all of that. I'm going to invite you to think about some of the lessons that you have gone through these 32 years, as you mentioned, from novice to mastery, like your book, and perhaps give us a couple of insights. You want all of them? Read her book. But just as a teaser, Karen, what will be some key thoughts that come up right now for you?
Of course, what I'm drawn to, Mel, is my more recent story in the last 18 months that isn't part of the book because it happened subsequently to the book, but it's a reinforcement of fundamental lessons that are embedded in that book. So I'd love to go there if I may, Mel, which is my story of having been cancering for the last 18 months. And last March, taking surgery for stage 3 invasive lobular breast cancer is the term. And that then moved on, and I was told it was going to be fine and I'd have radiotherapy and everything would be okay. And that wasn't the story. They found that the cells were in my blood vessels and I needed to have chemotherapy. So I took chemotherapy through last year too, and then radiotherapy in November. And here I am. I was sharing with you just as we stepped in yesterday, I had the haircut of my own hair and the whole day of being normal again.
Wow.
And what I would say the two most important things that I have spoken of in the book, but that were reinforced. One is that to be compassionate with self is not a luxury for the coach. It's not a nice to have. It's not a I'll get round to it in the end. I'm too busy with my clients. I've got so much in my diary. I'll be okay when I get into the conversation. It is not a luxury. If we want to be truly authentic as coach, we need to continually come home to self, have compassion and the courage to do that, and know that this has great purpose, because the more that we come home to self, the more powerful we are as instruments of our coaching. So that would be my fundamental encouragement, because when we don't do that, they're the times when we're very likely to fall. And falling in our coaching can be very painful, can be humiliating. We can feel ashamed, and I've certainly done it, and I've told the stories of it. But that would be my biggest encouragement. And you asked me for two. My journey of, and I call it cancering because it was a term I heard a very long time ago, and it stayed with me. rather than it become a solid thing that I have this cancer. It's a sort of dynamic thing. I'm flowing through it at the moment and it will move on. And I certainly have a sense of that now. But for some, and I am absolutely speaking only for myself, for some, it's a battle. For me, it was a new relationship. I was curious, who was this manifestation in me that meant that I was on this journey? And I gave my cancer a name, and her name was Molly. And Molly and I, very coaching, got into some really good conversations with each other. And there was a moment when I asked her, you know, Molly, there's just you and me. And I didn't want chemotherapy. I truly did not want to have to go down that journey, but I didn't have a choice. Well, I did have a choice, but I decided this was my one chance to give the big guns a go. So I'm going to do this. Molly, it's you and I need you to work with me so that together we can do the very best we can with what's being offered here for our very best outcome, and inviting her to work with me. And now I've got goosebumps, Mel, down my shoulders and my arms, because I believe she did. And that was my way.
First and foremost, congratulations. Thank you for sharing this, and for choosing to go through that journey. And I guess you kind of knew that that relationship with Molly will have to shift into something different. I'm wondering, how difficult was that for you to be able to allow Molly to be something else after the procedures?
There was an incredible moment when I was paying attention to her, and we were into the chemotherapy, and inside of me there was this explosion of sparks and white light that was overwhelming. It wasn't in my head, it was in my body. And like a child's sparkler, you know, just the white magnesium bright light inside of me, and like Sputnik sparkles. And I knew she'd heard, and I knew she was with me, and I knew she was working, and I knew she would keep me safe, which is the most bizarre thing. Again, I'm stressing, everyone has their own unique journey with cancer. Everyone has a different outcome. We don't all survive, and I may not in the end either, but at the moment I'm here talking with you, and I can only speak from my own experience. But this sense of her suddenly transforming, combining, bringing healing to me was the shift that happened in me. And then for that to dissipate, and that's my honest answer to you. So there's a parallel, isn't there, in believing that this will change, the outcome will be there, trusting, letting go, being as curious, compassionate, and courageous as possible, and engaging with even that which can be so shocking, terrifying, apparently powerful, but in the service of something greater than ourselves.
And here you are, serving us with this, I wouldn't say story, but it's more than that. It's this experience of a glimpse of what you went through. And I'm so appreciative that you are so willingly wanting to share this light with all of us. And I'm wondering how this has shifted your approach into your coaching practice.
It's a lovely question. Thank you. Thank you for asking. There's more ease. There's more wholeness. Health, not in a medical way, but health in a systemic way, that I have an awareness for. And this letting go and allowing, I think, is more present with me. Most definitely. And there's more of me available. All of me's here. You know, not a crafted version. Like here I am and there you are. And meet me. Travel with me.
Wow.
So freeing, Mel. So freeing. Such joy, freedom, fun, and love.
And that's a space that I think every human being deserves to be at, right? When we have that freedom, as you say, that fullness of that love, acceptance, that joy comes out, that peace comes out. In a way, we don't have to say, okay, linking it back to Robin Hood, obviously, and Hollywood, and likes action. You know, it's we did not wait for that announcement to happen. We're already in the moment. When we're brave enough to choose that on a daily basis, if it's possible.
And maybe every day those opportunities are there, but it can be such hard work. Coming to that place can be such hard work, but it's possible. It's purposeful. We have that gift available. But I think there are demands on us to give the best we can and to keep learning and growing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't want it to sound like a cliche or idealistic, but there's great beauty in this, and I've seen that beauty shine in so many people, in so many guises, when they have a glimpse of a moment like that. And I think it's that whole body sense of joy, not a state of happiness. It's a different thing, because that's the energetic. That's the thing that's flowing. That's what makes so many special moments possible. And yet, for some, they're in despair, lost, alone. And that resonates for me. I knew in the very dark moments in the middle of the night that I'm fully alone. There's only me in this. Well, there was me and Molly for a while, but and I would just hope and believe in the possibility of, in those dark moments, for there to be support and energy and spirit and possibility, because we deserve it.
Yeah, we certainly do. We can talk like this because we have both experienced the goodness and the awe in all of this freeing space. And then, of course, there are those who have not ever experienced that for themselves. Or perhaps they're on that journey of experiencing that. What would be that thought for those, let's say, coaches, who are perhaps going through that tough moment, right? The transitions that I guess have to take place before they come up to a new state. What will be your thoughts for those who are on that journey?
Do not accept the judgment at face value. Judgment of self, or feeling judged by others, or judged by the client, or judged by the system. Do not accept that at face value. There is purpose in this, and look beyond, because there is something precious on the far side. And if you stay with it, you will learn. And in learning, you will gather the resources that you need, and then the feeling won't be there anymore.
And then knowing that it is also a journey.
Yeah. And so many of those moments, Mal, many of those moments I know we have all had. And sometimes when we don't quite get there and have the learning such that we can feel the transition and the growth, then we go round the block and it pops up again. And all of a sudden we meet a client who reminds us of whatever. And
well, Karen, we can fake it, we can fake it till we make it, and that's not an advice I'm giving, by the way, but that just popped up my mind, right? It often is the case when we think we've just got to push through it, right? And if we just push through it hard enough, we'll get there. How much truth, have I realized that was telling me, which I guess it wasn't full truth in my journey, because all of that fight was inside of me. I was just fighting what was the things that I didn't want to face, the things that I wasn't ready for, things that I perhaps denied even. So it's a mixed bag, Karen. And that journey takes us, as you say, it may come up again and again if we have not learned that particular lesson and grown from that experience. Don't you think it's a tough gig?
Yeah, it sure is a tough gig, and things all happen in order. Like you do some work and you go, oh yes, now I've got it, that's it. And then all of a sudden there's another manifestation and another and another. But I have this analogy of the stacking Russian dolls. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I
Yeah.
know it.
So like the essence at the center of who we were
Oh
always
my
destined to
gosh.
be is truly there and inside us. And for me, every time we learn, it's not a reductionist removing a layer of the onion, but it's a let me add the next biggest version of me. And then I
Wow.
integrate, which means I've lined up the dress,
Wow.
the arms, the
Yeah.
flowers. And so, like, by the end of my life, how big could I be in my
Oh my gosh.
babushka
Yeah,
version?
babushka doll. Yeah.
So, you know, that growing,
That's
but
amazing.
always
Mm,
the essence of who we're meant to be before anybody else interfered on our pathway.
mm.
Uh, if I can add one other thing, Mel,
Sure.
you talked of, you know, it's a mixed bag. An awareness I have is the most magical, powerful, transformative things happen in a moment where juxtaposed opposites come together, and in that moment, that's where the power is.
Wow. Mm,
So having the courage without the compassion will just lead you up against the same brick wall, and it
mm,
hurts.
mm.
My company's called Diabolo Limited, which is maybe not the right pronunciation, but it's the one I've adopted. But it is the skill of the Chinese juggling of the double-headed top with two sticks and a piece of string. And why that matters to me so much is the juxtaposed opposites.
Mm.
And to make that double top spin,
Yeah.
you have to whip with the right hand and bounce with the left. And unless you have both, nothing's happening.
Wow. Ooh. We're talking in parables here, you know, in layers.
Yeah, yeah.
No pun intended with the dolls, but I love that
So
that whipping
this
and the bouncing happens together.
simultaneously.
I've got to whip around and bounce around.
You sure have. All that whipping on its own is going to get you nowhere. It
Oh
just
no.
makes you exhausted and the top falls over.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. I would love to know your wish, your wish for coaching, right? Yeah.
I in this phase of my coaching working life, my focus is now more fully on conversations that need to happen in teams and team on team on team through organizations. How can I bring the very best framework and freedom to enable powerful conversations to happen across an organization? And that's my vision and my passion for my next 5 years. Team coaching is growing rapidly.
Yeah.
And it's a tough gig, but I think we can bring structure and simplicity to this, and that I would want to be a catalyst for that. So my hope for coaching is that as people become aware and knowing and practice and learn and share and talk and bring it to their lives, that it continues to spread and amplify, because there's great purpose, which is something I've said several times in this conversation, for us having the best conversations possible that enable us to do whatever we need to do for the outcomes that in the end allow us all to feel connected with something greater than ourselves, whether it's delivering in our organization or in our family, or with our community. And that would be my hope. It's not just one-on-one, but how can we do that with groups, and the greater community and culture that we touch.
So true. And the whole systems of things, right? And that's what you're saying. All across the whole conversation, it's been about that realization. And then from that realization, I sense like those sparks are flying out, you know, reaching out. It catalyzes different people all across to then continue that effect onwards. Thank you. And just like that, your story in this period of your life has and will be a continuous encouragement and catalyst to many more out there, and how we should just start with ourselves and extend that courageously to others out there. As we come to a close, Karen, any last thoughts that you want to leave with the listeners today?
I just want to say, lead with your heart.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Karen, for being on the show.
Thank you. I've loved our conversation and really appreciate the opportunity to share the story. Thank you, Mel.
You're most welcome. This has been the 100 Master Coaches show today with Karen and myself. We're saying, take care. We'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe wherever you are, and continue to shine your light out there. Bye for now.
You have been watching the 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Brought to you by Catalyst Coach. www.catalystcoach.live. We will be right back with our next Master Coach on the 100 Master Coaches series.